I can't get her anywhere near a classroom, except in odd kinds of ways. Tony, my youngest daughter, at 18, got on a plane, went to Paris, lived for 2 weeks, auditioned for the Marceau School of Mine, got in, and spent 2 years in Paris, virtually again getting an education on her own, picking and choosing what she wanted to learn, what she felt her own education was about. And even today, when I suggest that maybe she wants to go back to school, she says, no, I'm going to figure it out for myself, and she very clearly is. So even though they didn't have the benefit of an organic education, it's very clear that as a human being, you bring something to your children from this experience that I think is inordinately valuable. My husband had one rule when we were raising our children, and that was that there was not to be a television in the house. So they were raised without television, just as we were, because it hadn't really been invented very much when we were going to school. And I remember our lives being so busy and so full, I can't imagine where we possibly would have, when I read about how many hours children watch television these days, I'm like, how can they possibly have time? There's too much to do. And we always had that sense. I mean, I'm thinking about when we were in remember we were in 6th grade and we used to spend Sunday afternoons in your backyard playing games. I mean, we were always occupied doing something in an interactive kind of way with our environment. We never, ever, I don't ever remember a passive moment other than sitting and doing a lot of reading, which I love to do. But I don't think of that somehow as a passive activity. It wasn't moving. But everything we did was kind of related to interacting with one another, interacting with the environment. And I think that was important. I think there were some drawbacks. The school didn't have a lot of, it never had a lot of money, so we didn't have the kind of science equipment that some people might think we needed. We didn't have the kind of, perhaps we didn't have the kind of tools that people thought we ought to have. I think it was hard to find good teachers of mathematics. If there was one place where I would really have loved to have better teaching, it would have been in the field of mathematics, because I got to Bennington where I had a wonderful teacher, and I kind of had to back up a lot in order to begin to get on the right track. But I think you're right. What it did teach us was, if you don't know something, here's how to go about finding out about it. And I think that was valuable.
Being able to distinguish what was accurate and not accurate, or something that was taking you in the right direction or not. And I don't know exactly how that was taught, but it was, I think.
Talk about a little bit when you were, Dot asked you, talk a little bit about the times when you were told the philosophical reasons for why you were doing something.
Well, there were 2 things I remember. And one has been the strongest, probably the strongest principle of me as a teacher and director, which was that every child had something, and it was up to those working with the child to provide, either in curriculum or in interpersonal understanding, or in whatever the grown-up could, the means for the child to develop that. I remember a boy who had, now would have a diagnosed learning disability, who would be diagnosed as learning disabled, who could throw pots like nobody else at the school at that time. And we knew that he had a learning problem, but we would have done anything to be able to throw pots like he did. And it was like somehow a part of us that whatever another person could do, that was of equal value to what anybody else could do, was good at. Whether you jumped the high jump the best, or made something beyond your years in woodwork, or weaving, or ceramics, or metal, or, you know, whether you read faster or with greater comprehension, all those things were regarded as equal, and that has never left me. Those two things, that there's something there. And eventually, what I did was go into special education. I became, right away, very interested in kids with problems, because I guess they were more of a challenge than the kids who, you know, had it together. And I use those two principles. There's something there, no matter how disturbed or withdrawn or bizarre. I've taught a lot of bizarre kids. There's something there, and the trick is creating an environment or a mood or things, you know, finding the right things to reach whatever was going on with that kid. There was also, since the activities that we had were so intrinsic to what children love to do, I think we had a love for our school that is rare. It's rare. I see it in my own kids, because they go to a public school, but it's a magnet school where the teachers really designed the curriculum, and so there was a tremendous sense of participation or teacher-based planning in the school. And I have that same feeling at their school, that it's a very special place, and boy, you just don't knock it or you're in trouble. And they also seem to have really gotten straight that you don't put anybody down for any reason. You find out, and the teachers do wonderful things, a lot more verbal, interpersonal stuff than we got, I think, at organic, but about people's feelings and self-esteem and what their roots are, and a kind of more conscious development of a class as root process. You know, of course, we're more sophisticated in that kind of stuff now, but I see the same process, and I think it is the same. You know, I was thinking when you were saying about what you found when you went away to college. When I was in the Peace Corps, I was assigned to train rural teachers in elementary education. And all you needed in rural Honduras, which is where I went to teach, was a 6th grade graduation certificate. And so to upgrade those 6th grade teachers, they got a periodic course and supervision throughout the year. And I got my feet wet a little bit and went around and did some of the supervising and was just amazed. I remember it was sort of unbelievable that they were studying ancient curriculum models that I was told were European-based, although I can't say that was actually factually so, but that's what I was told. But for example, in biology, they would learn how to draw pictures of flowers and memorize the parts. And one day I brought in a flower, and they didn't know that one end of that flower from the other. And so the woman who was in charge of the program agreed to let me rewrite the curriculum in Spanish based on, BSCS. Did you ever see that curriculum out of Denver, Colorado? It was ecologically based.
Yeah, I taught that at the mountain school.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a nice takeoff for a whole lot of other stuff that you can do in biology.
Yes.
I mean, it was when a lot of those organic principles were starting to ooze their way into curriculum development, particularly in the sciences. Yeah.
Well, this lady was a real progressive thinker, and so she